What do? They go to social media, they make up stories, they say this was not right, Russian disinformation, all this stuff against Trump. Think about it. And listen, I don't say this out of any satisfaction, but this is terrible stuff. This guy has been condemned for 50 years based upon a pathological liar who they let out of prison on a murder beat. I walk in redemption. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to God for that, because our God deserves that. I got to tell you, I think one of the longest lasting and maybe most intriguing stories that we've had here in America over the past 50, 60 years is the story of Jimmy Hoffa. It never seems to go away. It never seems to die. Somebody's always claiming credit for it. There's always another story about where his body might be buried. I myself have a story about that. I think I've mentioned it before, when a fella came home from prison and sent for me and said, I got to see you. And he told me this whole story about Hoffa because he was away allegedly with somebody that claims that he was part of the hit team. It's somebody that I know, somebody that I've respected, somebody that I know is a pretty tough guy and wouldn't be out of the question if he was one of the shooters. However, when he spoke to me about it, I said, well, where's the body? And he gave me an idea. I believe that the body is wet. That's what I believe. Do I know where it is? Of course not. If I knew where it was, I'd probably be able to tell the story. I made this guy put the whole thing on tape. I have the tape, everything that he told me, but he couldn't identify exactly where the body was. And so many people have come forward. They've dug up houses. They've dug up, other places. They said it was under Giant Stadium, all of this kind of stuff. It's always been a wild goose chase. I believe it's a murder that'll never be solved. It's too long already. They're never going to solve it, but it never goes away. It's like, Godfather 3. Every time I try to get out, they pull me back. Same thing. So today we have another story about Hoffa. And this is a little bit different, different story. But I got to tell you this, wherever I go in the world, when I open it up for questions, just about every single time, one of the main questions is, where is Jimmy Hoffa buried? Do you know what really happened there? What's it all about? And of course I don't. But it's amazing that I get asked that question all the time. So people are just intrigued. People that were born so much later than Hoffa, they don't know anything about him, that might have heard something about him. There's movies, of course, we've seen everything there is to know. It'll never be solved. That's my opinion. It'll never be solved. But this is an interesting story, and I want to bring it up. It's a little bit different, like I said. I'm going to read the article, and then I'll interject some things into it as we go along. But here is the title to this article: A Bid to Clear the Last Living Jimmy Hoffa Suspect, Truly Un-American. New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew, who says 85-year-old Gabe Briguglio has been a victim for half a century, is leading the push to exonerate him. So this fella, his name is Briguglio, and he is named as one of the main suspects in the killing of Jimmy Hoffa. They've never charged him with it. They've questioned him, but they've haunted him with this ever since the Hoffa killing. The guy's 85 years old now, and he's tremendously bothered by it, and he wants his name cleared. And let me tell you something. If they didn't charge him at this stage, they're never going to charge him. So why not clear him? It's ridiculous. This is our Justice Department at the time. Let me read it. For the last 50 years, Gabe Briguglio has been known as one of the killers of labor union leader Jimmy Hoffa. I never even heard his name, I'm going to be honest with you. Now 85 years old, he's the last FBI suspect still alive, and after all these decades has high-powered help to try and finally clear his name. That's the congressman. Quote, this man has been a victim for half a century. He did nothing wrong, says Representative Jeff Van Drew from New Jersey. Quote, the FBI, the Attorney General, and the Department of Justice can make this right. He needs a letter of clearance. Now, let me ask you a question. Why should you even have to fight for this? If you haven't charged this guy in all of this time, it's obvious you're never going to charge him. He's 85 years old. He's extremely bothered by it. You know what? If he was the real killer, what would he care? What would he care? It's obvious that he's not. I never heard his name before. I didn't even know he was a suspect. But why not clear the guy? Briguglio's name surfaced a few months after Hoffa disappeared in 1975 from a New Jersey prison inmate, Ralph Picardo. Listen to this story. That's why sometimes these informants, they drive you crazy. They make things up. They lie just to help themselves to get out of prison. Listen to this story about this guy. Picardo told the FBI what he thought had happened to Hoffa, and authorities used his unsupported claim to impanel a grand jury in Detroit. But it turned out that the FBI, a Justice Department special prosecutor, and a federal grand jury later exposed Picardo as a, quote, pathological liar who had a history of lying to FBI agents and fabricating allegations in cases to help himself. Where do you have to go after that? He's a pathological liar. He's fabricated cases to the FBI to help himself. The FBI knows he's a liar. He's the guy that implicated this guy, Briguglio. Why don't you clear him? What more do you need? That's what drives me crazy about these informants. So often they lie. Not all of them. I'm not putting everybody in the same basket, but so often they lie. I've never witnessed in any of my cases an FBI informant get on the stand, put their left hand on the Bible, right hand swear to tell the truth, and then lie through their teeth. I've seen it in all my trials. It happens a lot. People lie because they want to get out of jail. And they know that the FBI will buy just about anything they tell them if it's helping their case. That's just the truth. The FBI, quite frankly, should not have used his testimony so freely, says Van Drew. The FBI should apologize. The FBI is not going to apologize. Look at all the stuff that went down recently, with Hillary Clinton, with that dossier that they knew was fraudulent, they knew was false. What about the laptop that they knew was right and said it was false, that it was Russian, disinformation, Hunter Biden's laptop, and now they used it as the main piece of evidence against Hunter Biden. And they killed that next case. They made Hunter what? Take a plea so that this information doesn't come out against his father, so that his father can just, exonerate him, pardon him later on, or, reduce his sentence, whatever he's going to do. Give him a commutation. Come on. Why not? Just say, hey, we made a mistake. Investigation, sometimes we make a mistake. No, they'll let this guy hang and suffer. Terrible. In his letter, Van Drew wrote, Mr. Briguglio's reputation and well-being have been significantly impacted by these unresolved allegations for nearly 5 decades. It's both just and necessary to consider a formal declaration of his non-involvement to restore his reputation and provide closure for his family. A letter of clearance would not only affirm the principles of justice and fairness, but also provide significant relief to my constituent and his family. Why wouldn't you do it? You said the guy that implicated him is a pathological liar. Why wouldn't you just say, hey, he led us on a wild goose chase. We're sorry. Here's a letter of clearance. The guy's 85 years old. Why would he want it if he was really one of the shooters? Hoffa, the legendary labor leader, who was the former president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, vanished on July 30th, 1975 on his way to what was believed to be a meeting with mafia leaders as part of his effort to return as the head of the massive union. Good friend of mine now owns that diner, and he turned it into a beautiful restaurant. And so I've been there a couple of times. It's great in Pennsylvania. Wonderful. He was last seen in the parking lot of the Macca's Red Fox restaurant. That's the restaurant that now I go to, my friend owns, just outside the Detroit city line in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, getting into a maroon Mercury that belonged to the son of one of the Motor City's top mobsters, Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone. Hoffa thought he was meeting with Giacalone and Anthony Tony Provenzano. You saw the movie. They didn't get along. A powerful New Jersey Teamsters local president and a capo in the Genovese crime family. That's true. He was. And that, what I believe, is what Hoffa did believe. He was going to that meeting, and then he disappeared after that. I had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with anything that happened to Mr. Hoffa, despite the countless claims that continue to call me a suspect to this day. How could he still be a suspect? It's 5 decades later. You have zero proof other than what a pathological liar told you. Why didn't they clear this name? It's justice. It's not just go after everybody. It's called justice. If this guy was unjustly named and you didn't charge him for 50 years, Why don't you just give him his letter of clearance? I'm 85 years old. I'm hoping to put an end to the shadow that has been cast over my life and the lives of my family for nearly 50 years. They don't care about that. Government doesn't care how they destroy your family. Trust me. I don't know how much longer I have to live, he says, but for whatever time I have left, I want to get it off my head. I want it to be known that I had nothing to do with this. Picardo, again, the informant, one of Tony Pro's mobsters who is serving 23 years in state prison for second-degree murder, told the feds that the month after Hoffa vanished, he was told Tony Pro was responsible for Hoffa's disappearance. Well, Tony Pro didn't like him. I'm sure he had something to do with instigating the murder of Hoffa. I believe that. That's what I heard at the time. I know where the order came down. It came down from Tony Salerno. I would bet my life on that. Do I have evidence or proof? No, I just know that's what I heard at the time, and I think it was good evidence. 1975, I was just getting made. I was on the street. I knew what was going on, and there was talk among some of us about Hoffa, and that's what I believe. Now, did Tony tell me that? No. Is that what I heard? Yes. Do I believe it? Does it make sense? Yes, it does. He said that if that indeed was true, he believed a pair of brothers, Tony Pro associates, Stephen and Tommy Andretta, and Sal Briguglio and his brother Gabe was involved. This is what Picardo, the pathological liar, told him at the time while he was doing 23 years in prison. Picardo told authorities that Stephen Andretta, identified as a New Jersey Genovese soldier in Tony Pro's crew, told him during a prison visit, I've heard this before, that Tony Pro was in on the Hoffa plot. FBI reports say that Picardo speculated that if Tony Pro was involved, it would figure that Andrettas and the Briguglios were also involved. Really? Why would it figure that? Tony Pro had a lot of guys around him. The Genovese family had a lot of guys. Could have been anybody that got the order. Sometimes it's somebody from a different crew that gets the order so that they don't put it together. Doesn't always work that way. So, he speculated. You're not supposed to speculate. You're supposed to have evidence. You're supposed to know what you're talking about. I couldn't believe that somebody would put my name in there until I found out it was Picardo, Briguglio told Fox Nation. He went on, I guess he did an interview. He says that when Hoffa disappeared in Michigan, he was at home in New Jersey and came home that night to his family after finishing work. That could have been easily, investigated. When I heard it was him, I knew right away what he had in mind. He wanted to get out of jail. Gabe says about Picardo. People, I'm telling you this, 95% of the time, these guys that become informants, they want to get out of jail. They don't want to do the time. 95% of the time, they'll give you all sorts of things. They didn't treat me right. They didn't do the right thing here and this and that. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's true. I'm not saying in every case. Please, there are some guys out there that have legitimate gripes with the life. I'm not going to mention anybody's name or anything else. Some guys do that. But there are a greater percentage of these informants that just don't want to go to jail. That's what happens. And so they sit down and they make up stories or they tell lies because they kind of know the stuff. They know the street. And if the FBI buys into it, that's all they care about. As long as they can't, as long as the guy holds up under testimony, that's it, on the stand. He's got to look for the best story that he could make up that would be believable because he is a believable liar. That's exactly what he did. Some of these guys are good. They tell their stories. They're believable, whatever. The New York Times reported that Picardo was, quote, fond of telling federal agents stories that had no basis in fact. Keeps getting worse with this guy. I mean, come on. Give this guy the letter of clearance. It's all based upon the testimony of a pathological liar. Court documents said Picardo believed self-preservation was the name of the game. This is what court documents said, and had been held in the psychiatric wing of the Trenton State Prison. My gosh, this guy is like, forget it. Picardo was rewarded with his murder sentence being forgiven by the government. How in the hell would they forgive this guy's murder sentence? Based upon the fact that he's a pathological liar who makes up stories to ingratiate himself. And he was released from prison in exchange for his cooperation. He's since died. He's dead now. But I don't get it. I don't get it. They release him on a murder beef, and he's a pathological liar, and they won't give this guy his letter of clearance all these years later? Multiple former FBI and Justice Department officials and others have told Fox News that Briguglio had nothing to do with the Hoffa case. In fact, the very government officials who were in charge of Picardo and worked directly with him admitted that he was not trustworthy. Does this make any sense to you people? I want you to apply it to some of the things that are happening today. You know, the FBI trying to silence social media. What do? They go to social media, they make up stories, they say this was not right, you know, Russian disinformation, all this stuff against Trump. You know, think about it. And listen, I don't say this out of any, satisfaction. There's FBI agents that I become friendly with, and they don't like what's going on today. But this is terrible stuff. This guy has been condemned for 50 years based upon a pathological liar who they let out of prison on a murder beef. Are they so desperate to prove the Hoffa case that they'll take even a liar like this? We called him, this is the FBI saying this, Ralph the Rat. He was a pathological liar, says Melvin Goodnecht, a retired IRS special agent who told Fox Nation that while what Picardo told him in a separate case was corroborated, little Ralphie was still a liar. He was an unsavory character, and he was a little bit crazy. Why would you reward somebody like this? Why would you? I mean, you're so desperate to get somebody else that you give a guy like this a pass, you'll reward him? Is there anything noble about that? I understand that the FBI has to work with informants. I do get it. But there is a point. How much are you going to reward them? This guy did not deserve any kind of reward. He's in there for murder. He's a pathological liar. He's making up stories. And you let him out? He would lie as much as he can. This is the government saying this, says Briguglio. Oh no, Briguglio said this. He would lie if he could throw his mother into the thing. Well, you know what? Time proved Gabe Briguglio was right in a very big way. In 1981, Picardo aimed his lies at the White House. Listen to this. He accused President Ronald Reagan's nominee for U.S. Labor Secretary, Ray Donovan, of taking bribes while Donovan was a top executive of a Garden State construction company. Picardo's claims about Donovan prompted an investigation by a special prosecutor and was the subject of headline-making Senate hearings that exposed Picardo's untruthfulness. I remember this. Not deeply, but I do remember it. I don't remember Picardo, but I remember this. Donovan, I remember him, who went on to be confirmed to Reagan's cabinet, testified at his U.S. Senate Labor Subcommittee hearing that Picardo, quote, is lying. I know he is lying. In fact, I believe he's a pathological liar. There are witnesses who call him a wacko, quote, off the wall, quote, full of S, quote, okay, and a pathological liar. Special Prosecutor Leon Silverman, who investigated Picardo's claims, concluded in his report to a panel of federal judges, the source, Picardo, admitted having deliberately lied. He admitted this about all of the allegations and stated that none of them were true. The source stated that the source had deliberately fabricated the allegations, that the allegations had all been lies. He deliberately fabricated all these lies against a Reagan nominee. And this poor guy is still waiting 50 years to get cleared when this was the guy that implicated him? Let me ask you a question. Put it in your comments. Do you believe the FBI or the Department of Justice should reward people like this? Do you believe that? A pathological liar makes up stories about anybody, convicted murderer, they set him free. Do you believe that they should reward somebody like this? Please tell me. Or do you think there's something wrong with the system? Do you think that these informants should not get, just because they spill the guts on a case that the government wants that might be more important than them, and these people are smart, they realize that. Look at how they get rewarded. I'm telling you, it's terrible. It's wrong. So many of you know I've been in the wine business now for just over 2 years, and I'm happy to report that we've been very successful. People are accepting our wine, not only all over the United States, but all over the world. We're getting, people that want to have our wine in various countries, very rewarding. And our wines are from Armenia, the ancient vineyards, first vineyards in the new civilization. We're introducing it into the United States, been very successful in that. We have a couple of different categories. Our Areni is our #1 seller, terrific, you're gonna love it. We also have a pomegranate wine that you won't find anywhere else. And now we've just introduced non-alcoholic wines, and people, it's off the charts. People are loving that. If you don't drink wine and you want to participate with everybody that does, ours tastes so good. People are really enjoying it. I recommend it. So if I were you, I would go right now to our website, franzesewine.com. It'll tell you where you can buy it. We're in 9 or 10 different states now, soon to blanket the entire country. We also have a map up there to show you what stores we're in at this point in time. And I know you're going to enjoy it. So thank you all for supporting us, those of you that are enjoying it. We always say it's a sip you can't refuse, and I guarantee if you try it, you're going to see that I'm right. Donovan's name was officially cleared from the damage of Picardo's lies, but Briguglio laments that he has not. Well, why not? Because this guy was running for public office? Or as an Reagan appointee, you clear him, but you won't clear this guy Briguglio when you had the same witness, the same liar? I'm getting mad here. This is terrible. In 1975, he was subpoenaed by the grand jury in Detroit investigating Hoffa's disappearance, and he was put in a lineup. He was not picked out. Briguglio was not picked out of the lineup. Instead, Briguglio was thrust into the national spotlight in the glare of publicity and media attention, saddling him with the label as one of Hoffa's suspected killers. He says he simply went home and has had to live all these years with notoriety, with no redress from the government. Quote, "What I find so distressing is that there has never been any public attempt to correct all of this," he says. Briguglio's family is expressing, quote, "heartfelt thanks to Van Drew for his efforts to clear their father's names. Quote, I'm grateful that my father is finally being heard and that there is someone not only willing to listen but to take action," says Briguglio's daughter, Jonah. "To me, it's courageous to stand up for someone's rights, and for my father, who's now 85 years old, he is so grateful that someone is hearing his plea." There is a precedent to seek a letter of clearance in the Hoffa case. In 2013, Jack Goldsmith, Harvard law professor and former U.S. Associate Attorney General in the George W. Bush administration, sought one for his stepfather, Detroit Hoffa suspect Charles "Chucky" O'Brien. His name was mentioned quite a bit. The Hoffa investigation enveloped Chucky and eventually ruined his life, wrote Goldsmith. His stepfather was about to receive the document that would have cleared his name, but an internal government agency procedure issue blocked its issuance when the then U.S. attorney ruled that the FBI had no jurisdiction to grant the request. O'Brien died in 2020 at the age of 86 without getting the vindication that he had so hoped to receive. Why is it so tough for somebody to be vindicated based upon this nonsense that we're hearing? This Chucky O'Brien also, they even had him in the movie, Hoffa, as one of the drivers with, what's his name that played it? It was a brilliant movie, by the way. I forget his name. He played in The Shining, and Jack Nicholson. It was a brilliant movie. And they had Chucky O'Brien as one of the drivers, Well, he was innocent. And a technicality wouldn't give him a letter of clearance because the FBI couldn't do that. Where the heck was the Attorney General at the time? Should have done it. Briguglio's older brother, Sal, who was identified as a Genovese crime family hitman, was shot to death gangland style in Manhattan's Little Italy in 1978. I remember that. It was believed that he was going to turn state's evidence and testify against Tony Pro in a 1960 union-related murder. Briguglio insists he was not in the mafia, not only dealt with Provenzano, as part of union business in his roles as an official of another Teamsters local. He did end up serving 2 years in federal prison in an unrelated labor racketeering case, which he says was a setup. This is Briguglio talking. He says the witness who framed him was again the proven liar, Ralph Picardo. This guy did so much damage. Briguglio's family says their father's treatment has been a miscarriage of justice, confirming the old adage that justice delayed is justice denied. I love that old adage, yes. Justice delayed is justice denied. It happens all the time. And let me tell you something, we're experiencing that right now in a big way. Justice delayed against people that have done the wrong thing and are not held accountable. That's what's happening today. Yet Donald Trump is getting crucified. Crucified. Think about it. All my life, quote, my father has taught me to stand up not only for my rights, but for the rights of others. This has been the example he has always set for me and my siblings. But my family has lived with this injustice for almost 50 years with no one fighting for us. I truly don't know if I can find the words to adequately express what this means. For God's sakes, let's end this and clear his name, says Van Drew. I believe in America. I believe in the rule of law, and I believe in justice. When it doesn't work right, we must fix it. Okay, where is our wonderful, head of the Department of Justice now? Why isn't he not doing something about this? Why is it such a technicality? What more evidence do you need? The guy was named by FBI agents as being a pathological liar. He lied against a nominee, for Ronald Reagan. He lied several times. You let him out of jail when he was in there for murder. What more evidence do you need? Why is this guy fighting so hard for justice 50 years later? People, there's something wrong with our system. Look what's happening today. Look at a particular case like this. Doesn't mean anything to anybody. I get it. But it's important to this person and to his family. It was important to Chucky O'Brien. He couldn't get it done. They even had him in a movie as one of the drivers. Well, they never charged him with anything. Why not? Why not? This case is never going to be proven. Let these people off the hook. And government, you know what? Stop using these informants that lie. Do your investigations. If they're lying and helping your case, that's not justification. It works both ways. And if you make a mistake, admit to it. We understand investigations sometimes don't always turn out. You gotta get to the real facts. People, it's why I am dead set against the death penalty. Do you know that at one point in time, I think a couple of years ago, I read, and this is true, you can look it up, do your research, I'm not doing it now, over 200 people on death row that received the death penalty were exonerated as a result of DNA evidence. What does that show you? 202 people were wrongly convicted and sentenced to death? Well, you know what? If one person is wrongly convicted and sentenced to death, that means you can't use that as a consequence. You can't, as a sentence, because the American justice system never has a right to kill an innocent person. Never, never. We are a democratic republic. We can't do that. So I'm telling you firsthand, there's nothing rosy about life in prison. Believe me, especially when you're in a high-level institution, you know what? You've got to live out your life. Some people would rather be dead. Justice has got to be balanced. There's got to be that equal. And people, when that happens, and it goes in the reverse, we're in a lot of trouble. So look, I hope this is an example. Briguglio, I don't know you, but I hope the government steps up and does the right thing and gives you that letter of clearance so that your family at least can enjoy it and you can enjoy it and feel exonerated for the rest of your life. And listen, Mr. FBI, whoever you are, you're not going to listen to me and you think, oh, I'm biased. I'm not. Watch out for these informants. Just because they help you in your case, don't accept their lies. It's not the right thing. And people, please comment on this. I want to hear what you have to say. Do you think the FBI, the Department of Justice, or any branch of law enforcement at any time is ever, ever, ever right in using an informant that lies? Tell me what you think. And should they get, the perks that they get? Should they be let out of prison? Should there be a get out of jail card? Get out of jail free card? Let me know what you think. That's it for today. I get worked up on this stuff, people, because I see it happening and it's just not right. Innocent people should not suffer because of the Department of Justice or the FBI or any law enforcement agency. It shouldn't happen. We got to clean it up. How do I leave you? Same way every time. Be safe, people. Be healthy. God bless each and every one of you. God bless your families. God bless America. And yes, I'll see you next time.